Hi, my name's Kelly Burns. I'm the City of Ashland Emergency Manager. I'm here to kind of help facilitate this 2-hour presentation that we're going to do for you. I really appreciate that you're here on a Monday night from 6 to 8 p.m. We've got a lot of content to go through. I want to cover just a couple of logistical things first. The building that you're in is Oregon Shakespeare Festival Carpenter Hall. It has one restroom out those double doors and just to the right. If you need to use the restroom, please go do that. And just try to be quiet as you're doing stuff too. Why be quiet? Well, because we are recording this tonight. Southern Oregon University and RVTV are here to record this presentation workshop that we're going to do so that anybody that wasn't able to make it tonight, that's easy for me to say, can view it. It'll be available on Friday. So when I say we're recording, there's one additional logistical piece, which is if you aren't comfortable sitting down for the whole time and you need to stand up, good with that. My back gets sore too. But please stay to the outside if you're going to stand up, because the aisle is where the camera is. And so as we're presenting, if we see the back of your head in the final production, it's fine. We'll be fine. A couple of other things. Some of you brought your devices. Now is a good time to silence them. Don't be that person. Or if you are, then we get to publicly shame you. And then one other type of person. Those of you that brought your cough drops, your crinkly things, your snacks, try to get all the crinkling done now. Don't be that person. Okay.
All right.
Well, let's start. I think one of the best offenses and defenses that we can do in the time that we're in and the climate that we're in and the area we live in is to get better prepared for all the things. Show of hands in the audience here, who lived in this area during the Alameda fire? I'm sure each and every one of you has some story that goes along with that. Who's new to the area, by the way? Okay, so you hear people say, oh, the Alameda, and their eyes get big, and there's a lot of scary things that happened on that time. Well, we learned a lot about that, but we also know that event taught us that, and this is obvious, fire doesn't care about borders. It doesn't care if you're an Ashlander or somebody from Talent or somebody from the county. We all really need each other. So this series of workshops that we're doing is to try to get you to connect in with everybody, because during that event, one of the most powerful things we learned was that if people are helping people, a lot more lives are saved. So tonight's lecture and workshop that we're going to do is going to give you an overview of some very important things. We're going to talk about smoke, because where there's fire, there's smoke. And we do get a lot of smoke inundation days. So Sarah Jones with Ashland Fire and Rescue, she's going to talk to you about how you can better protect yourself. If you already know some things, great. She's got a lot of resources for you. Then we're going to talk about home and landscaping and how to make your home just a little more safe. Is anything truly fireproof? No, most things are going to burn. But if you take the steps to do what my friend Brian Hendricks tells you to do, then your home has a much better chance, and you're going to have something to go back to, no matter how you live or where you live, right? Finally, Sydney Jenkins, our Fire and Life Risk Safety Specialist, who is also our CERT coordinator, is going to come up and talk about Ashland's very robust CERT team. It's one of the longest ones, I think, on the West Coast, and it's very involved, a lot of good volunteers, good people, and it mobilizes our citizenry so that they can also help during certain events with certain actions. Sydney's going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about one of my favorite things, Go Kits, and we've got one of our CERT volunteers who's got a long history of being able to talk to people. He's going to teach you a little bit more about Go Kits, and hopefully you're thinking about that. Finally, I'm going to close out the evening with some evacuation work for us, because as much as we'd all like to be able to know that our homes are going to be fine, that we're just going to make it again through the next fire season, I want all of you to be a little more prepared with evacuations. Just get comfortable with it. Something very uncomfortable, right? Just that you're here tonight speaks pretty loud for my beloved community, the Ashlanders and the Talent and this Jackson County area and stuff too. So it's pretty brave and powerful that you're all here. Let's get started. And Sydney, if you'd start off with our first video.
It is so timber dry.
There is a fire. If you're in your house, evacuate your house.
This fire really is out of control up here.
It was chasing me up the hillside.
Probably going to wipe out all these houses right here.
We could just see there was nothing left.
We thought we were going to burn up.
Our house, 2 houses next to us, and 2 houses across the street all burned, and they're gone.
It's no secret that the last decade has seen some of the most destructive and deadly wildfires in U.S. history. Wildfires claim our national parks, wildlife, timber, scenic byways, homes, communities, and even the air we breathe. As wildfires continue to grow in size and destructive power, so does the amount of money we spend. We fight them at all cost, and every year, they're costing us billions. How did we get here?
Forest fire suppression unwittingly contributed to sort of an epidemic explosion of trees. What we've done is created a very contagious landscape in terms of those fuel conditions. So now a fire can run unabated over fairly large areas. In addition to that, the climate's gotten warmer, so we're getting more consistently hot fire years. We've created kind of a perfect storm.
If we continue business as usual, we can expect 2 to 4 times the area already burned over the next 20 to 25 years.
I think a lot of our magical places will be burned up.
And we'll see some winners and
Some losers, some plant and animal species will be casualties. In the western United States, fires are absolutely integral to the ecology. The plant species are defined by a life history with fire. Fire is not only not the enemy, it's an essential process. One thing is certain, we need to learn to coexist with fire in another way. The question that society has to ask itself is, how does it want its fire and how does it want its smoke? We have tremendous potential to be able to configure forest fuel conditions so that we get the kind of fire behavior and resulting forests that we want to live with, to leave for my kids and their kids forests to recreate and mountain bike and hunt in, and to turn around what we did in the first 100 years of management.
We like that intro just because it kind of starts with homes and it talks about smoke as well too and all the things. So I'd like to ask Sarah Jones to come up and she's going to begin her presentation for us.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's great to see so many of you here today. I'm Sarah Jones. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for the Ashland Forest Resiliency, and I also help organize and implement the Smokewise Ashland program as part of the Wildfire Risk Reduction Division. The Smokewise Ashland is a local collaborative working group here in Southwest Oregon, and we're dedicated to protecting public health and creating community resilience in the face of increasing summer wildfire smoke, and also communicating with the public about our prescribed fire burning and getting you ready early and before summer wildfire smoke gets here. That's me. I have worked in different places across the country. I worked in Kansas as an energy conservationist for 5 organizations, and that really helped me learn about the collaborative process and how to get projects developed. And I implemented energy conservation for transportation and buildings, and it's really a useful skill that's come in as we do projects for buildings around Ashland to improve our smoke readiness for those buildings. And I think an important aspect that I want to bring to our programs is that we do include everyone in our community, and that we think about who we're reaching and that we're reaching all populations. I'll just give you a brief overview of what we'll cover. I will cover the partners, the projects and activities that we do with Smokewise Ashland, and then how we're meeting the needs of community members and what makes someone more at risk, and then how to be ready for smoke at home, and then at the end we'll do a hands-on activity. So here you can see the different major milestones that we've done here with Smokewise Ashland, and it's really important that we point out the partners that we've worked with. So The Ashland Chamber of Commerce has been really instrumental in helping us reach the business community, but also to plan the project for Smokewise and the activities that we do. And then the Oregon DEQ has given us, over a 3-year period from 2020 to 2023, $276,000 to be able to implement the Smokewise Ashland program and to be able to plan through our Ashland Community Response Plan for Smoke. And then Jackson County has also been helpful in being able to give us the latest information for health research so that we can share that with the community. And Asante helped us develop a smoke brochure and distribute that and print it. And then Oregon State University's Aspire Center, they help with children's environmental health. I am fully funded with a grant from OSU and the EPA right now to do this, to do the children's environmental health research that we're doing at the Ashland Public Library, at ScienceWorks, Bellevue Elementary, and at the Oregon Child Development Coalition, Briscoe School, and Children's World Montessori. And I think it's really important for us to point out the wonderful team that we have at Ashland Fire and Rescue. So they have all helped me in the Smokewise Ashland project and implementation of it. So up here in the top right, you can see Sydney Jenkins doing the outreach at the Ashland Public Library. And in the bottom, you can see Brian Hendricks and I doing a class at North Mountain Park. And then in the center, we're building DIY air filters at ScienceWorks at the Sparking Action event that we held last May. And then in the corner, you can see Kelly Burns pointing out where we can place an air quality sensor. So we have a new project that we'll be doing for air quality sensors at most of the buildings for the city of Ashland, and we'll send out information about that once that project is completed. And then in the bottom right, you can see where CERT helped us with delivering the air purifiers, and we did that in a COVID-safe way in 2020. And to date, we've given away 780 air cleaners in the community, and then we also have been able to fund replacement filters for those. And it's a really key way that we're able to provide the resources for people who can't afford those on their own. And so with the Community Response Plan for Smoke, we identified the vulnerable groups that we wanted to work with and the partners that can help us with making these adaptations to smoke. And we have a separate plan for the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. And the reason why we want to keep those two plans separate is because the Community Response Plan for Smoke actually changes the 1-hour rule for smoke so that we can have more flexibility during burning. And it really holds us accountable to the mitigation and adaptations that we need to be doing in the community. So every year we file a report with the state so that we can keep our exemption current. And here, when I very first moved here to Ashland, I didn't know there was a smoke season. And I was pregnant with my son Isaiah, and I had a friend at the gym tell me that that there was a smoke season. And at the time, I didn't know that I was a person who was at risk. So a really important way that we're able to make these adaptations is by reaching people who are at higher risk. And so pregnant people, the unhoused community, outdoor workers, and older adults and persons with pre-existing conditions are some of the people that we reach in our programs. And our unhoused population is really even more at risk because of their exposure levels. There's 3 ways that exposure is driven, and that is the concentration of smoke, the time you're in the exposure area, And it also has to do with the activities that you're doing and your breathing rate. So that's one of the reasons why we are working on having sheltering in the summer for the in-house community. And outdoor workers are another group that's at risk because of their extended times when they're exposed to particulates. And older adults too, it's partly because of the prevalence of pre-existing lung and heart disease and because of the alveoli, the defense mechanism in the lungs that are most susceptible to harm, over time get exposed to particulates and use. And so I am somebody who's in that category too myself. And so smoke is here to stay. And I think what's important for us to remember is that we are here to stay too. And being ready for smoke is a now way of life, and it's a trade-off for the amazing outdoor experiences that we have access to here in Ashland. And we're steadily getting more ready for smoke together as a community. And so this top picture shows you children at the Oregon Child Development Coalition's Briscoe School. And we've installed air quality monitors like this over here. So we have, this is a Purple Air 1, and this is the PA2. And we also have lab grade monitors that have been installed by Oregon State University researchers, so that we know when we make changes in the environment that the students are in during the day, if they're actually working with the air scrubbers and the air cleaners. And we've also, with that grant, installed 9 new doors for the school. And then you can see more of the projects we've done for education and sharing the resources with the community. We have, I don't know if you have been to the Ashland Public Library. When we have a smoke event, we have air scrubbers in the vestibule as you go in to keep the air clean, where you have a lot of foot traffic going in and out of the building. And I wanted to share about another project that we have, Southern Oregon Wildfire Education for All, that we work on with Southern Oregon Forest Restoration Collaborative. And this is a really wonderful program that is a comprehensive K through 12th grade education. And this helps students get ready for smoke, but also inspires them to go into forestry and fire careers. And we are a big exporter of fire and forestry work here in the Rogue Valley. So this is a key way for us to have the community get ready. And it's really fun to see. We weren't sure if students were going to enjoy sitting down out in the forest making baskets, and they do. They really like that quiet time and being able to relax and do that. And then on the right, you can see a student from Trails who's really excited to be trying on the Wildfire gear. And so on page 4 of your packets, I have a way for you to be able to get the air quality index. So in a lot of the classes that we had for smoke readiness, people have said, how do I get an accurate AQI? So I went ahead and made a whole guide for you to be able to do that. And another way to get the AQI is to go to airnow.gov, and then also to fire.airnow.gov too, because that fire.airnow.gov, that is a site that pulls together both the Purple Air and the regulatory monitors. So it can really show you where smoke is moving in the summer. And I encourage you to get an app and be prepared ahead so they can get push notifications, because we have smoke come in and really quickly change the air quality. And it's good to get an alert on your phone if you can and get those push notifications. So hopefully that's a little homework. is for you to be able to look through there, through the packet, and get an app downloaded if you can for push notifications. And we also have our on smokewiseashland.org, there's a camera of the watershed in the area that will help you see smoke, and then we also have the AQI posted on there. So to plan for smoking conditions, I encourage you to purchase your air filters before smoke gets here. Once a smoke event happens, we run out of filters and all of the supplies across town and in the Rogue Valley. Another way to be ready is to have a NIOSH approved N95 respirator, and I have those up here. Good example of that. And we do have those. We got 18,000 of them from Oregon Health Authority, and we have been distributing those at our community buildings too during the summer months. And then, of course, you want to do all your dusting and cleanup before the smoke season hits, and then have fresh foods available that you don't have to cook, because that produces particulates, and purchase extra essentials so you don't have to go out a lot when those bad smoke events occur. And so this is kind of what I've been talking about. I think most of the presentation is that the best way to limit your exposure is that limiting your exposure is the best way to reduce the harmful effects of particulates. So it's hard for us to change our behavior once a smoke event starts to happen, but you're going to want to take outdoor activities in. And if you have to go outside, don't use that respirator to go on a 2-hour walk. Try to shorten your walks and shorten those activities that you do outside. You're going to want to drink more water and offer more water to your pets. Eat healthy and rest. Shorten your pets' bathroom breaks, like I was saying. Put your car's air conditioning on recirculate. Set up a clean room in your home. Have games and indoor activities planned for your children. And I think one of the things that we have during these smoke events is the smoke really affects our mental health. So I remember living here in Ashland over by Safeway in 2020 and just not feeling like I could go anywhere or see anybody or do anything at the time. There was a lot happening then, but also in 21 and 22. So I encourage you not to just kind of stay at home, but if you can, visit friends in an indoor space that's got cleaner air, like at the public library or Science Works. So we'll do a hands-on activity together. I have respirators that are in your packets with you, so if you want to, you could pull those out.
Now you're allowed to crinkle things.
And now you're allowed to crinkle things. So, Kelly, do you want to come up and I'll walk you through this?
Yeah.
Okay. Pretend my hair is up. So the first thing you want to do is put your hair up if you have long hair. And if you do have a beard, you do want to try to shave it down a little bit if you can before summer. But OHA encourages you, if you have a beard, to go ahead and wear the N95 respirator because it's better than not wearing one at all. And so you want to keep the wrapper, open it on one end, just hang on to it just for later to store your respirator in. And so go ahead and open it up like a cup shape or boat shape. Okay, and you put the gray nose piece, just the gray side, over your face, and you pull on the straps and put.
What's that?
So there's a gray nose piece side. Yeah, the padded piece.
You don't see it color. It's like color.
And then you pull the straps over your head at the same time. And you can do one at a time if you need to. There you go. And okay, go ahead. And you're going to not want to cross the straps. You want to put one at the base of your head and one at the top. Oh, they're crossed. Do you want me to help you? You got it? Okay, there you go. And then one goes behind your ears.
Thanks, Mom.
Oh, actually, under. There we go. That's better.
You watching?
Under your ears. And then you're going to press firmly with both sides of your hand around your nose to secure the top of it, and adjust around the bottom of your chin. And then you cup your hands around the whole respirator and blow out sharply. Blow out sharply. And then if you feel any air around your eyes, you press down again. And if you feel any air around the edges, then you readjust. And that is how you put it on properly.
How did everybody do?
You're
blowing air out of your eye? That's weird.
If it blows towards your eyes and you feel it, yeah.
We just take them off.
I would take them off one at a time with the strap at the top and then the strap at the bottom, and then store it in the package that you have. Everyone always asks how long these respirators can last for, and it depends on the hours of use that you have with them. And if you're working outside and you're sweating, or there could be something else happening that causes it to be dirty. But if it's has any broken components on it, like a strap is missing and broken, or if it's really visibly dirty, then that's when you need to change it up. I suggest that for your families that you have one respirator a week. So if you had a family of 4, if you went into the season with at least 20 respirators, I think that would be about enough that you would need for your family. And I have one more slide. I was talking about Sparking Action. We're doing that again this year, May 10th, and it's at ScienceWorks, and it starts at 10 a.m., and we have all the information over here on the right for that event, and then also other classes where I dive really deep on creating a clean room and building your own DIY air filter. So if you can't get enough of learning about smoke, come and see me in another class. I forgot to ask how many of you have been to one of the classes with me? Oh, cool. 2 of you. I guess we got more people that can go to classes, it looks like. And then how many of you visited smokewiseashland.org? Okay, this is awesome. Check. Thank you. And I'm going to pass it off to Brian Hendricks, our Fire Adapted Communities Coordinator. And he'll take it away.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for being here. My name is Brian Hendricks. I am the Fire Adapted Communities Coordinator for Ashland Fire and Rescue. Big, long title. What's that actually mean? It really just facilitates our community's ability to adapt to wildfire better, so that if fire comes, it happens smaller, less intensely, and our buildings and our infrastructure are still here. Our lawns might burn, some shrubs might be lost, some outbuildings, but our homes, our schools, our businesses remain. And that is the point of resilience when it comes to wildfires, to being able to survive it and to live with it. So we have a very long history with wildfire, and most of the time, it's always happened where we expected it to, up in the forest lands, right? This century and in the past 16 years, it's gotten a whole lot closer to Ashland. Okay, starting with the Siskiyou fire, where we had our first major evacuation through the southeastern portion of town. Anybody who lived in Mountain Ranch at the time might remember this, of being evacuated out and having embers land in your yard. From there, the 2010 fire, where we actually lost 11 homes. And this was a wildfire because it started in grasslands, but it was wind-driven. This was a big intro to our wind-driven fires this century, that most devastation now is occurring because of wind-driven fires. And the Almeida fire, as Kelly already mentioned, a lot of us already remember that, right? What we really found out in the Almeida fire was the intensity of wind-driven fire and what wind-blown embers do to our community. I'm gonna get to this real fast because I want to make a quote, talk to you about not Zoom responding. A Stephen Quarles quote, who was a leading researcher, succinctly stated, "These types of fires that were defined as an issue of wildfires that involved houses, in reality, they are urban fires initiated by wildfire." Okay, that's an important distinction and one that has big repercussions for how we prepare for future fires. To date, these repercussions have not received enough attention, okay? Because urban firestorms spread quickly and extremely rapidly because of those wind blows embers driving spot fires forward and causing more fire in between homes, next to homes. And it's not a flaming wall of fire like we see in old movies or in large forest fires just enveloping everything. It is these wind-blown embers burning our structures, okay? Because we have to adapt more to wildfire. And our urban landscapes are vulnerable primarily because we have in Ashland all of these scenarios that define a WUI, from central urban landscaping to suburban and rural homes and the permitting zones, actually. So we have all of these, and we are a full-blown wildland interface environment. And so it is very critical that if wind-blown embers are coming into town, we avoid spot fires and things that can ignite if those embers land, okay? And so what I'll be talking about mostly today is that critical area around a structure. I'll be dealing mostly with homes because for all of us, we internalize our home being the most important thing to us, right? Because that's where we live, that's where we raise our children, it's where some of us get to die instead of at an old person's home, you know? We all have an ideal value to our homes, and it's critical we protect them. But the things I will be talking about also apply to businesses and other schools and other buildings where if there are any combustibles around a building or the roof of the building is failing or something is out of whack, we need to do better at maintaining those structures to resist the wildfire embers that are blowing through our communities. Because wind-blown embers cause, I see why Sarah did this, 90% of all home ignitions. Okay? We don't want this kind of scenario around our homes anymore. We just really can't, because every single home in our community matters when it comes to wildfire. And so to protect one home, we have to protect them all, because it is literally a domino effect. If one home ignites, the percentage of opportunity that home ignites another home is drastically higher, okay? So we don't want any structure to burn. If people look at this, raise your hands if you have at least one of these issues, right? Okay, how about two? You can leave your hand up if you have two of these issues. Three, right? Some people don't want, I don't want to say. A lot of us do this simply because our daily lives are busy. Modern life is complicated. We are always out and about, and we forget about things. And this could only be one side of our house, and everything else looks immaculate. But that one side will matter, and that's why we have to improve our maintenance. Because adapting to the realities of urban wildfires demands bold, consistent action rooted in integrity. Like, we have to take care of each other and do it honestly. The Ashland community must work together to lower wildfire risks. We do this by fortifying our homes, our infrastructure, and our institutions while adapting landscaping best practices that ensure defensible space and fire-adapted landscapes. And with the mic is funny, sorry. With wind-blown ember, you can ignite a fire anywhere. If it lands in something combustible, it will burn. So one of the critical things is to avoid direct flame contact with your building. So do you have things that can burn right next to your home? This is why on a national level, everyone speaks about the 0 to 5, the immediate zone, zone 0. This has several different names, but it's really about a matter of proximity to your building, to your decks that are attached to your building, to staircases made of wood, okay? We want to make sure none of that burns, because otherwise we do have direct flame contact to our home. Okay. And if we clear out that first 5 or 10 feet, but don't deal with anything past that, it could be still too much fuel for the fire right next to the home. And then we still have a radiant heat issue, okay? So that 0 to 5 and 0 to 10 is critical to get flame away from the home. But if you ignore everything past it, including the neighbor's house, you run into the risk of radiant heat, okay? A bush on fire could burn 500-600 degrees. Your next door neighbor's house could burn up to 2,000 degrees, okay? None of those are a good situation, right? A window can really only stand up to maybe 180, 200 degrees of heat, okay? So we don't want high intensity heat for a long duration of time next to our buildings, okay? And that is why we try to promote and create defensible space, okay? We're looking at everything from the 0 to 5, the 5 to 30, and the 30 beyond, where we're thinning out and managing vegetation, wood piles, where we store them, sheds, outhouses, buildings, outbuildings. I don't think anybody has an outhouse anymore, but outbuildings is what I meant to say. Okay, because defensible space reduces direct flame contact with a home. It removes possible sources of ember ignitions, so you reduce the chance of spot fires starting around your structures. It decreases the fire intensity if a fire does start. Okay, a small bush burns much faster and lower heat than a very large bush. So just the principle of physics and fire behavior, we want smaller flame and lower temperature fires around our house, so it gives that house the opportunity to survive. Because we at the fire service, life is number one. We're trying to get you out of the way. We want your home to be able to survive as well, but that means the preparation before the fire, how that is determined. Because it also makes firefighters safer to come in and defend your home, because they see that you've done your part, so they feel safe enough to stop and try to do their part. Because we do not want firefighters to put their lives at risk either. And so if you're not managing your property, they're more likely to pass by to go to one that's more defendable, because it's within their safety. Okay, and in all this, a lot of the distances we talk about is spacing with vegetation or moving things away. I don't mention slope directly, but if you have slopes, it is critical to adequately mitigate those risks with slopes, because slopes increase distances required for spacing vegetation so that fire stays farther away, because everyone knows heat rises, right? Is your house above or below a slope? It will depend, the slopes will depend on what you need to do. Like, do you need to remove the blackberry in the creek below your home? Okay. Do you have to mitigate the areas outside of your fence line? Okay. Just because the slope is right there and fire intensity could be hot next to a fence line. Okay. And this video is the first video we're going to show. It really gets into a hardened home where modern science promoting hardy board siding, non-combustible decking material, all those kind of things are on the right side of the home, where the left side of the home is a typical WUI environment house, wood shake shingles, bark mulch next to the home, flammable shrubs. This video isn't very long, but it does prove a point, and I hope it sits with you.
So from start to finish, we're going to start with our ember generators, which we use to recreate a realistic ember exposure. Embers are those small burning and smoldering particles that may travel ahead of the fire front. And what we do with our generators is we create the realistic exposure, and in our wind tunnel, we're able to throw them at a building. And then we have a building that has two sides to it, a good side, which uses wildfire resistant construction, and what we're considering a typical building that we would see in a wildfire prone area. exactly as we expected. That mulch on the ground there caught fire from the embers. The fire from the mulch burned up under this deck, and this whole deck was on fire. And so this fire on this deck caused flames right against the home. And then if we look there at the base of the door, there was actually the flames from this deck that burned through the bottom of the door, and on the inside of the house we started to see smoke and flames. And so because this deck was a combustible material attached to the building, when the embers led to the ignition of this deck, we got flames inside of the building. Here we are on the wildfire resistant side of the house, where we had non-combustible siding, a 5-foot non-combustible zone and 6-inch gap. We had a metal gutter and multi-pane windows, and we see in comparison to the non-wildfire resistant side, this side had the same ember exposure. If you look here in the mulch, you can actually see some of the embers that had accumulated, but because they had no susceptible fuel to ignite, they just landed there and fizzled out. Now here we have ornamental vegetation that again is susceptible to the embers, but because it's more than 5 feet away from the home, it didn't have enough energy to ignite, and it never led to a flame impact on the building.
Short but effective video, right? The thing I love most about that video is why we say don't put bark mulch next to your home or under your deck. So if you have it next to your home under your deck, please consider moving it back at least 5 feet. Use a mineral soil, bare dirt, or rockscaping. Okay, we highly recommend that as soon as possible. Sorry, the mic keeps dropping out. So I'm going to get into defensible space first, talking about vegetation, spacing, and things to look for around your home. And first I want to introduce the home ignition zones, which were developed by Jack Cohn, a leading wildfire researcher who did a lot of stuff in the 80s and 90s. And he came up with these zones that he called the immediate, intermediate, and extended zone. But we will primarily use the 0 to 5, the 5 to 30, and the 30 and beyond. Okay. Because it is critical for the house itself, because you may have wood siding, you may have a wood shingle roof, you may have a wood deck that's failing next to your house, but you might not have the budget, especially in today's economy, to do anything about it. So what we should focus on first is the things within your control, which is typically the vegetation, the storage, and the regular maintenance around your home. Okay. For safer landscaping conditions, we really are focused on the placement of vegetation, the spacing of it, how it's maintained, and what it is you're putting there or leaving there. So to create defensible space, the first 5 to 10 feet is what we like to promote here in Ashland, because the 0 to 5, all the wildfire research is based on cement board siding. Within 5 feet, what does fire do to cement board siding, okay? The little caveat in the footnotes on the research is increase that to at least 10 feet if you have wood siding, okay? So a lot have wood-sided homes, so we need to think 5 to 10 feet based on the condition of the home. So if you have anything failing or older siding that is wood, get more distance than the first 5. But you want a fire-free area. You want it as non-combustible as possible, which means no bark mulch, okay? It removing all dead vegetation within 10 feet of the home and out from under decks or around the near proximity of decks or staircases, or if you have storage near your home in this zone because there's nowhere else to put it, keep it debris free. Cover it during wildfire season so that if embers do start blowing around, it is as best protected as possible to reduce the chance of ignition. That is specific to wood piles, lumber piles, or other combustible storage. But otherwise, we are hoping you are storing those types of things farther away from the home. Okay. Avoid highly flammable plants within the first 30 feet of your home whenever possible. Okay, that means maybe thinning out the landscaping you currently have. Flammable plants should be used in isolation, if at all, on your property, which means if you have a favorite mugo pine, let that be the only one on your property, and all the other vegetation around it is more fire resistant and well spaced, so that mugo pine is the least amount of threat as possible. They burn easily. We also don't want highly invasive plants, so if you have a yellow flowering Scotch broom this time of year, please cut it out. it is highly invasive when we don't want it here. It is also highly flammable when mature, okay? And it spreads seeds a lot, and they're hard to keep out. If you ever go to the coast, you know what Scotch broom looks like. We don't want that situation here. So blackberries, Scotch broom, even flowering vines around your house, like on your porch, can build up debris inside them. What's around them growing on? Is it a wood trellis? We have an issue with that. So that's where you need to thin out the dead and dying of your vegetation to make sure it's as healthy and green as possible. Because these evergreen shrubs, a dirty secret, they're very, very dry inside, and they're easily ignitable. So you open up one of these green evergreens that look green, it is highly dry inside and combustible, and they burn very intensely. So if you have one against your home, I'm not going to have you raise your hand, but truly consider removing it. For shrubs, we really don't want large shrubs under eaves, near windows, or next to decks or wood fences. Okay, that should be smaller, low-growing vegetation that is more moist and less fire conductive, because even wood fences won't burn as well. There's debris or dry vegetation against it, okay? If it was clean around both sides of the fence, it's less likely to continuously burn. So even protecting wood fences, think about the vegetation next to them. Have large fire-resistant shrubs. Maintain them or remove them. If you don't have time to maintain it, consider getting it out of the way. Otherwise, they should be debris-free, not touching the building, and pruned off the ground with no bark mulch under them, so that they are the best prepared to resist heat, okay? Well-maintained privacy shrubs can repel radiant heat. They could protect a window if adequately maintained, but that is no guarantee, because all vegetation can burn if it's hot enough and dry enough. And if you have combustible shrubs, prune them up, tighten them up, reduce their size, okay? Combustible shrubs like oh, darn it. It must be me. Even manzanita, which is a native, and we would like to promote it, shouldn't be right next to the home, okay? Otherwise, it needs to be truly pruned up. This gentleman's shrubs, he did a really nice job. They're outside 30 feet. They're pruned off the ground. He has bark mulch in this zone for insulation, but it's not connected to the home. It's farther out from the house, and he spaced them out. Not quite to standard, but hey, it's better than nothing, right? He did a great job. Still beautiful. They're just better maintained. Ground covers, we prefer to remove ivy because it is invasive, and other invasive spreaders like that because they hide debris within inside them. If you have vinca, St. John's wort, ivy, if you ever pulled it apart, you'll see a lot of debris in there. During summer season, it is very dry. Where is it growing? What is it connected to, right? Prune the plants to keep them short and at least 1 foot from all buildings, unless it is a concrete or stone wall, right? You want it off the building so that you're protecting the base of that wall. And break it up with non-combustible services like rock pathways, pavers. That way you're separating fuels. It's not just one continuous horizontal fuel that could burn over time closer to a structure. And grasses. Ashland, I know you love your bunch grasses, but please keep them away from the buildings, right? We tend to plant these because they add a lot of color and texture to the landscape, but they are grass. They will dry out, and in summer conditions, they can be highly flammable. So isolate them. Make sure they're separated from other fuels, and they're not growing right next to decks or the walls, okay? And cut your grass, and he's going to remind you of that, your regular grass. But remove grasses that may be too close to the wood deck, or remove highly flammable species that might be on sale at Home Depot, But that doesn't mean you should buy it and put it next to a wood fence, right? Because they will get bigger over time unless you maintain them at that size, okay? And vines, keep them off of wood structures whenever possible. Grow them on metal trellises and not on the walls of your homes or the arbors or patio awnings that might be connected to your home, because you really have to maintain the debris out of them. If you have a grapevine or a wisteria, you know they do accumulate stuff. So you need to keep that debris out. Okay? Because even the best maintained vines, usually at the bottom, you're going to find a pile of debris. Okay? So be careful of that. Always look under things. And that's part of the reason we prune shrubs off the ground, is so you see stuff accumulating, which means you're more likely to clean it up. Because all this talk about protecting one home is you're protecting others as well. So all these distances between things matter. How well they're maintained between each structure does matter. Because a lot of us in the urban environment and suburban environment don't have much space between our homes. Some as little as 3 feet, some 6 feet. Some you can reach over and touch the other building out your window, right? So we have to be aware that anything going between those houses could be a fuel for fire, okay? A lot of us use plants between homes where the windows are. And a lot of those plants are arborvitaes, Italian cypress, things that are highly flammable, which means those windows don't stand a chance if those things ignite, okay? So be aware of those things, talk to, have open dialogue and friendly conversation about real risks. Because neighbors have to work together to identify the risks and come up with a plan. This isn't all going to happen overnight, okay? But once we start talking about it, we're more likely to do something about it, right? Because you may want to move a wood pile or plan a shed build or an additional ADU or workshop a little bit better than you originally planned, just so that you're protecting everyone in your neighborhood. Because we don't want any house to burn, because it increases the likelihood of more houses burning. And within that 5 feet, especially, things that even are managed could be a higher risk, okay? Rosemary's above bark mulch next to a wood-sided house with an unprotected vent, right? His property looks amazing, but this is a critically important piece in the 0 to 5 that should be addressed. Bamboo next to windows with debris under it. So something to pay attention to. The dreaded leaf, the swirl and the fall of leaves building up against a wall, you may be forgetting about because it's the back of your home, right? Especially in interior corners. Protect the stuff out, clean that stuff out, and keep it away from the base of the wall. I don't like microphones, by the way. Even plants that are considered fire resistant, understand that if we're paying attention, debris builds up. And we're protecting that base of the wall, and I'll show you why in a second with another slide. Bamboo that we use for screening. It's lovely, but it is a grass, okay? It dries out, it drops a lot of debris. It's hard to get in there and clean out that debris. That means it's ember ready. It's ready to ignite if windblown embers start blowing around. So be aware of where it is, how you're using it, and how you're maintaining it. Because large stock bamboo that you can spread out in space for screening, that you can keep clean, is a whole lot safer than something that's multi-trunked and tight that you can't get in there and remove the debris easily. If it's not easy, we tend to not do it as often. And remember other hazards around your house. Just firewood, stored lumber, propane tanks, flammable gases and fuels, garbage and recycling receptacles, burnable outdoor accessories, including cars, RVs, boats, trailers. These are things we typically put right up against the garage, especially RVs, because our driveways are never long enough. Those are more susceptible to fire. If they start igniting, how does the house resist that heat? An RV has a lot of fuel in it. Okay, because the base of the walls are very susceptible to fire. We to protect them because most walls have a moisture gap, okay? Unless you have a brick wall, a stone wall that is sealed at the bottom, or a stone fascia, you're going to have a moisture gap. And that moisture gap leads to wood, the wood framing of the home, the underlayment for the wall siding. That's all wood. We want to make sure there is no fire down at the wall, okay? If you keep a lot of debris because you're just simply not maintaining it enough, that's fire right at the wall. You want at least 6 inches of clear space so that if wind-blown embers are blowing around and accumulating against the base of the wall, they're accumulating against stone or concrete, not the siding, and that you have enough gap from that weakened siding of either wood siding or even cement board with that gap in it. It can resist a certain amount of heat. Okay, it buys you time if nothing else. And attic vents are also critically important to protect, making sure birds or squirrels haven't gotten in there to bust them out to try to make nests. Make sure you're inspecting your attic vents at least once a year. Repair them as needed, because they should be a flush 1/8 metal mesh screen, or you might have a baffled vent, something like this, where they just have the round holes. You can purchase these screening behind them, or just by this with an 1/8 inch gap, right? You just want to make sure these screens are intact and in good condition. Same with crawl spaces. Okay. And dryer vents. Okay, make sure you don't have vent up it. Okay. Skylights, making sure they're protected. If they do open, close them upon evacuation. Make sure you have that routine set up. And roofs, especially. Keep moss on the roof. Moss will dry. It is combustible. It could lift the asphalt shingles of your roof because you're protecting the wood underlayment of the roof. Clean out your gutters. Keep debris out of them. Okay. Use screening in certain areas of gutters to reduce the maintenance habit of it. Okay. Repair damaged wood. Fill gaps and cracks. Okay. You might be getting the theme here is maintenance, 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 because it is critical. No matter the condition of our home, keeping it as well maintained as possible is where we need to move forward. Okay. Protect fence lines. Get vegetation off of them. Keep debris out of them. Okay. When you can, or if you replace a wood fence in Ashland, ordinance, you put a non-combustible first 5 feet attachment to your home. Okay. We encourage these. They will help protect the house from igniting. Elevated decks, do not store combustibles under them. Don't allow leaf debris to accumulate, okay? Keep them non-combustible or fully enclose it, all right? I wish I had 2 heads right now. Just be aware that small open spaces, these are part of our daily life. We usually just set stuff by the door on the side of the house and go on our way. We forget about it. These are the primary things that can ignite our homes. So be aware of them. If you have open sheds, putting a door on it. If you store wood on the patio, store it somewhere else, right? Make sure it's gone by summer season so that you're not leaving wood there year round. And I leave with this video because it's a nice thing about reminding us about Ember. So, big clip.
A single ember from a wildfire can travel over a mile. That ember can ignite and destroy your home or community. You can't control where that ember will land. Only what happens before it does. Visit fireadapted.org to learn how you can help protect your community from wildfires.
Thank you for your time. Also visit ashlandoregon.gov. We have our wildfire short link right there at the bottom of the page to get to wildfire and community risk reduction, where you will find a lot of our fire-adapted communities, resources, information. So please check us out. Thank you for your time. Up next, we're going to have Sydney Jenkins.
Hi, I'm Sydney Jenkins. I'm the Fire and Life Safety Specialist. Hold on a sec. Brian just talked about tall, dry grasses and wind-driven fires. The city of Ashland does every year to help reduce our risk of wildfire is we enforce weed abatement on all properties during fire season. This requires cutting grass on all areas of the property, all grasses, weeds, noxious vegetation, which includes the Scotch broom, blackberries, thistles, anything that's going to catch fire and sustain a lot of heat. And this is your about 1 month reminder that the deadline to complete weed abatement on your property is June 1st. So now's the time to start cutting. So for properties that are larger than 1 acre, we require to cut all grasses and weeds 15 feet around the property line, 15 feet around all access roads, driveways, park rows, sidewalks, and then 30 feet around every single structure. That's your home, your sheds, your outbuildings, and your neighbor's home. And of course, 3 foot radius around all fire hydrants so that we can find them. If your property is 1 acre or smaller, we just require weed abatement on the entire property. If you have a property that you're concerned about for weed abatement, we now have a new platform called SeeClickFix, and you can report it on there. It's on our website on the main page. If you see the salmon-colored button at the bottom that's circled, if you just click that, you can create an account, and then you're able to track where that's at in the process. I'm also about to talk about CERT. Has anybody heard about our CERT program? Awesome. So our CERT team, their primary purpose is to help prepare communities to help themselves, their families, and their neighbors during a disaster. Some of the basic functions that CERTs do is they can assist emergency services during a disaster. They can assume some of the same functions as emergency services and, again, help themselves and their families. One of the specialty programs that our CERT program has is the WRAP teams. This is the Wildfire Risk Assessment Program. They are specially trained to go out and help you do a basic wildfire risk assessment on your property so you can identify those areas that could really use some abatement or repair to help reduce the risk. If you want to learn to be better prepared for yourself and your family and your neighborhood, you can take our CERT basic training, which is coming up this fall in September. Some of the things you will learn is basic disaster preparedness, radio communications, disaster medical, light search and rescue, basic fire safety, disaster psychology, terrorism awareness, and 2 awesome things that you can get out of that is we have official Stop the Bleed training and live fire extinguisher training. So, real quick, before we talk to you about go bags, I'm going to ask, if you were about to evacuate right now, what are the first items that you would grab? It's good. Anybody want to give an answer?
I would take people, pets, prescriptions, photographs.
Anyone else? Any other ideas? Here's Mike. He's a CERT volunteer. He's going to talk to you about go bags.
Thank you, Sydney, so much for that introduction. I liked a couple of the ideas that I heard out there about what to pack in a go bag in case the tragedy strikes town. I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Mike Connolly. I'm one of the CERT team members, volunteer for the fire department. This is my 5th year volunteering for the CERT team, and I feel like the organization fills my heart, and I like to share safety items about fire safety and awareness. Today, to prepare a go bag, the go bag contains some of the things that are personalized to your needs. If possible, each member of the household should have some of their own go bag items. Go bags are best if you need to evacuate your home quickly and are packed with minimal supplies and other things of comfort during travel. Seasonal clothing for 2 to 3 days, eyeglasses, contact lenses, other medical devices, hand sani, disinfectant wipes, personal hygiene, medications, cell phone and charger, important documents such as identification, banking information, medical information, family contacts, insurance policies. Might need this, your passport. Basic go bag contacts also include things like a portable radio, shelf-stable foods, ATM card and cash, local area maps and evacuation maps possibly, a first aid kit, flashlights, travel-sized personal toiletries kit, and miscellaneous items such as books or playing cards or things to pass the time. When you're talking about foods to store in your go kit or your go bag, you want to think about shelf-stable foods, things like canned meats, fruits and vegetables, protein bars, dried cereal, granola and trail mix, rice cakes and crackers, canned soups and chili, canned and boxed juices, and non-perishable milk in cans and containers. I heard in the audience today, food and water, very important for sure. It's recommended that you have 1 gallon per person per day. In my house, I store 25 gallons of water in a closet in my house. It's in a shaded spot so that the plastic containers that the water's in don't deteriorate over a long time. Consider what your family will need each day for drinking, meal preparation, and personal hygiene. Important documents you might need to bring with you. In case the tragedy strikes your home, you'll want to have things like identification, personal insurance policies, medical information, important contacts, and evacuation maps. Now, don't forget about your pets. You want to prepare for them as well by having a carrier ready, bedding, food, medications, and toys for your pets. When you're considering putting all these things together, it's fairly straightforward to put your shelter-in-place supplies into a plastic storage tote. It can be easy to grab this item and load it into a vehicle during a level 1 preparedness level of being ready, or level 2, be set. These evacuation levels can provide resources, or this tote can provide resources to you for an extended period of time. I store myself a stuff bag with 2 days worth of clothing in my car all the time during the summer, so that's one less thing to pack during the be ready or be set level. If you want to learn more information about not just a go bag and being prepared for being on the move, we ask that you view the 2 Weeks Ready guide from the Oregon Office of Emergency Services. Follow this QR code and it'll take you right to the 2 Weeks Ready kit. It's a good extended program to help prepare you based on how much time you have to prepare, based on how much income you have to spend on preparing, and how much time and effort that you want to devote to this sort of thing. Thank you very much for joining us today.
How's everybody doing? It's getting a little stuffy in here. We're breathing each other's breaths, right? So I've got the back door open over there, and maybe we get the side door open just to get a little circulation going. Maybe stretch a little bit, because you're about to do some work. Somebody would advance the slides. Thanks. Okay, we're going to do some evacuation readiness. That's one of my favorite things to do, especially in my new role. My name's Kelly Burns. I'm your Emergency Management Coordinator. I got to do 3 decades with Ashland Fire and Rescue, our little Ashland Fire Department. And I also got to be part of some very big events that no little fire department should ever experience. But this informed my switching tracks. People say, oh, you retired from the fire department. I didn't retire, and I'm not retiring. I wanted to do something that was a little bit more. There was a moment during the Alameda fire. I was the incident commander, the initial incident commander, first guy there trying to get our few resources to get in between fire and humans and buildings. And as I do that, I also know that this is going to be a big, big event. And so I'm calling back to my support people who aren't firefighters, but they work for the city. And I said, hey, let's get some things organized. We're going to need bathrooms, food, shelter for victims. Like, we need to stand up an emergency operations center. And I'm saying all these things, but there was some institutional knowledge that had been lost over the last decade, where people that knew how to do that and trained how to do that were no longer trained to do that. I was talking with somebody earlier, and we were talking about the grassroots efforts locally that our locals organize, that nonprofits organize. And I will tell you that one of the things that endeared me to our area here in our region is that while maybe the government's response, whether that have been state, federal, county, or local response, while that was kind of clunky, the grassroots efforts from all of you really bore a lot of fruit and helped a lot of people. So people were saying like, oh, you're a hero, you're a firefighter. No, you're my heroes. You guys are great. So let's get into some evacuation readiness. I hope you did stretch out a little bit here, because I'm going to make you think about some things. Next. Oh, and I've got this. So sit. Thanks. Technology is perfect. So I want to tell a personal story, and this kind of plays through to what we're going to talk about tonight. When I go and I speak about evacuations, they're scary, right? And so I've actually been told by groups, they say, hey, Kelly, don't scare them. And the same thing kind of happened to me when I was left in charge of the kids when they were smaller, and my mom had to go to an appointment or work or something like that, and then dad is in charge. And of course, I'm not supposed to hurt them or harm them or scare them. And so I would ask my kids during the day, because I had two wonderful daughters, still wonderful. They're mostly adults now. And I would say, hey, what do you want to go do today? Let's go for a hike. And they're like, yeah. And we lived on the south side of town. And my kids at 7 and 4, everybody recognize what this is? This is the Ashland Street Railroad overpass. It goes to Shopping Cart, our favorite grocery store. And that bridge to my kids was the highest place of all. And that was elevation, not you modern kids that talk about that other thing. This was elevation. So they thought that was amazing. And they were like, Dad, let's hike to the highest place of all. And I said, great. So we put together a backpack and some water and some snacks and goldfish crackers. And off we head. And we go down the bike path. You can see the bike path. You're there. Do you know what lives under the bridge? Scary things. So under the bridge, the bike path is good, and there's probably a 7-foot retaining wall, and then going up under to the bridge abutments, there's gravel and rocks and trails, and there are sometimes humans there. Some of those humans, and I speak from experience because I had 31 years of running calls, I would go to calls for humans in this area, and some of them weren't very nice, and some of them do bad things, and so it's a little dark and scary under the bridge, almost like a story. So let's fast forward. My kids want to hike there, and I'm like, we're on the bike path, but I want to go down Clay Street and then come up. And they're like, no, we want to walk under. We want to see under the bridge. And I was like, okay, let's go on the bike path. They're like, no, we want to go up in the rocks. And well, you can't argue with a 7 and a 4-year-old strong women. So I'm like, great, let's go. So we start walking up there, and we're walking between the edge of the retaining wall and the rocks and going through. And my youngest daughter at 4, Raquel, she's trudging along in her 4-year-old toddler body, and she says, Dad, I'm scared. And I said, oh, okay, Raquel, here, I'll pick you up. I can carry you the rest of the way. And she goes, no. Talking to the big dumb man. She goes, no, I'm just scared. And she keeps going. And I stood there stunned, but I was like, okay, so you're scared, but great. So truth be told, we managed to get through there without anything bad happening to us. But as we work on these things tonight, I maybe just think of Raquel, like we can be scared, but we can still keep moving forward. I hope that story applies to what we're doing. And I just like talking about my kids. So when I do talk about evacuation readiness, here's some of the things I talk about. And I call this the level 201. You academics, you college kids, you recognize the levels of school. So some of those things up there are pretty important. Where do you get your information from? I look at the weather all the time in fire season. I like to understand what a red flag warning is, and I'm not going to explain that tonight, but I might explain it on July 16th. You probably already know it. If you don't know it, you can look at the National Weather Service website, especially from our Medford Office of National Weather Service. Like, we need to help those guys out because federal cuts are happening, and we need them. But the red flag warnings are super important. It's time to pay attention when those come out. The rest of the stuff, Jackson alerts. Why do we have so many names for our alerts? Why do we keep changing the names? I don't know. Some people like to change the names all the time. You know what? It's fine. It used to be Nixle, and then it became Citizen Alert, and then it was like Everbridge Nixle, and then it's Jackson Alerts. Don't worry about what that's called. Worry that your account is there, and you ought to make sure it's updated and that you're going to get the notifications, right? That's the most important thing. Let's be real. But let's go to the thing we're going to work on tonight.
See this one here? Make plans, level 1, 2, and 3.
So a lot of businesses and a lot of agencies and a lot of care homes and hospitals and city departments are trying to figure out what they're supposed to do. And the Ashland YMCA, who goes to the Y? Okay, some Y members and stuff. They approached me and they said, hey, we want to work on our evacuation plan. And they approached me shamefully because they think everyone else already knows all this. And so I said, well, let's design a plan for a level 1. Let's design your plan for a level 2. And let's design your plan for a level 3. And that simple framework became what is now the Ashland YMCA evacuation plan, and it really works. I encourage you to use that same framework. Think about what it means for a level 1, 2, and 3. That's what we're going to do right now. The rest of the stuff we can cover later. So Oregon Department of Emergency Management got us on board with Ready, Set, Go. And that was about a decade ago because they thought it was cool, like it's like a foot race, ready, set, go. And then right in about 2021, after the Labor Day fires of 2020, which included our Alameda fire, they were like, you know, they're not responding when we say ready, and not really responding when we say set, and sometimes they're not responding when they say go. So they added a little more verbiage to it. So be ready. It's actually telling you to do it. Be set and go now, where when you told people to go before, they were like, well, I'll go in a few minutes. So now gives you some urgency and it makes people move. All right, so, and the state, after our 2020, they got their act together. They started putting out better materials because I think their response early on wasn't great, but they got new leadership and new folks that are working hard. I have a bunch of these at the back of the room. And this is great. It's a good reminder. It teaches you to be ready, be set, go now. Not every area in the western United States has this. Most of California does, though. Most of Oregon does, though. Idaho, beautiful place, catches on fire. They don't have it. Right. Well, and in some places in the Midwest that are now also catching on fire, they can't actually use a green, yellow, red. I had to look at it because there's other systems that are already designed like that. So we're lucky. This is our system. This is the Oregon system. But this is important here as a reminder. But what I really like about it is that it gives you some prompts as to like what you could do in each of the levels. And the most important part, because it's not just a 2-pager, it's a 4-pager. And on the inside, this is my favorite part. And so good on you, Oregon Department of Emergency Management. They gave us a list of things that you could do, what to do during an evacuation. And there's actually some good ideas here. What to pack if you have time. Guess what? There's actually some good ideas in here. What to do inside your home if you have time. And what to do outside your home if you have time. So I encourage you, that back table there has more than enough for us in here. And if we do run out, I've got a box of these. I want everybody to have one of those. Got it? So now let's practice. Let's train. I'm an old firefighter, and I know that training is one of the best things that gives us some new grooves and synapses up here that we'll use when we're under pressure. I want to show you what the message might actually look like, what it might sound like. I can read it to you, and I'll probably read part of it, but not all of it. What will a level 1 look like? You have your smart devices, right? You got your phones. Some of you still have a landline because you don't want to be on the grid. And some of you have emails. And what else do you have? You got TTY. So let's see what a level 1 evacuation notice looks like. Ashland Police Department has issued and then a Spanish translation for that. Truth be told, your law enforcement agency, wherever you are at, those are the people in charge of evacuations. Yes, a fire department is supposed to be coming and doing that, but they're going to be busy fighting the fire and telling you, get out. But it's law enforcement's jurisdiction and job to handle this for us. Thank goodness. And here's your message that you might get on your phone. Level 1, be ready for a possible evacuation. Now, a level 1 is probably going to feel a little exciting, but it's less exciting. It means that there's somewhere out in your area, there is some danger. It's not on you. It's not near you. You have a little time. What else do you notice about this message? What is it with the new zone names, right? See, that was good. I led you right to that one. Why? So this is us, right? 2021, we published 10 evacuation zones, and we were the first place in Southern Oregon to do this. It made a lot of people look at us funny, but then they kind of said, well, we kind of like that, actually. It divides up the town a little bit. We can't predict always where the fire is going to be and where it's going to go, and so do you need the whole town to evacuate if there's only a fire in zone 10? No, you don't. So we divided it up. And we called them 1 through 10. So why do we need ASH 00 and a number? Why do we have that? Because, and I guess I should read that, it's what the Western United States is already doing. It's what California is doing. And so we are adapting. We are adapting and changing our way to make sure that we align with them. Yet, locally here, I don't mind if you call it zone 1 through 10. But when you get that message, if I'm not available, and I'm usually available, 24/7, 365, but I might have a day off now and then. If Jackson County Emergency Management, who I work with closely now because we have a way better relationship with them, that's how your message is going to look. It's going to have the 3 first letters of our name, Ash, that's where it comes from, and then 001, 002. ASH 001, what zone is that? Very good. So I had our GIS team actually keep our old names over the top of it, but if you look carefully, like below zone 4, you'll see that that's actually embedded there, the ASH. So we are moving along with them. That's what our messages will look like. All right, now let's get back to work. So what should we do? Let's see. Name 3 things that you would do upon receiving a level 1 evacuation notice. Now, because this is about joining together in community because we need each other, I need you to look at somebody next to you, behind you, or something like that and say, well, this is what I would do. You have 2 minutes. Ready? Go. Okay. So that should have primed the pump for a few things you're thinking about with a level 1. I did throw up the list here of what the state recommends. It's kind of easy recommendations, but that should also do things. You were asking us about these lights that we can't control because we're not Shakespeare people. But I would ask you, what's your favorite one on that list? What do you see that is like, oh, what did I think of? Have your emergency plan and go kit ready. You want to know my favorite? I was trained by a really cruel retired Seattle fire chief that every room I ever went into, he would be like, okay, Burns, show me your second way out. Your primary way is blocked. And so every room I go into now, I'm looking at the exits to see what are windows or things. So my favorite is consider your primary and secondary evacuation routes. Because are they going to get blocked up? Ooh, yeah. So should you be learning your town? Yeah, you should. Should you be learning lots of other towns? That's a fun activity to do. Go exploring. Go for a drive. Go for a bike ride. Go for a run. All right, good job. Now we're just going to keep pushing. What will it actually look like at a level 2? Okay, now, and there's the prompts up here. I don't know if you can read those. It's even hard for me because my eyes are finally getting older. Be set to evacuate at a moment's notice. That's important. And there's significant danger in the area. It's not on you. It's not in your zone, but it might be adjacent to your zone in another zone, and you should be paying attention. Okay? This is what it looks like on your phone. Ashland Police Department has issued A. And here's the level 2 evacuation. Level 2, be set to evacuate from the following areas. And then our favorite new way to say the zones. You know what we're going to have to do now? What does it look like to you in your situation? Name 3 things you would do upon receiving a level 2 evacuation notice. And you have 2 minutes for that. Please share that with whoever you're next to. Like, start to problem solve, find out what others are doing because you'll learn from them. Ready, go. They're so fun. All right, how was that? Okay, a little more. Yes. One of the places where they said don't scare them, I began the talk by saying, okay, everybody, we're going to have some fun. We're going to have some serious fun. Yeah, that's a good way to start it. Okay, now that you're all ready, you did a level 1, level 2, let's do the hard one. Okay, level 3, go now. This one gives me, makes my stomach upset too. So let's face it together, okay? This is what the message will look like. I'm not sure if I made this clear. I did, but I'm going to say it again. For the first time, Jackson County Emergency Management, all cities in the Rogue Valley, including Ashland, are sharing the same language in our evacuation notices. And we're including our Spanish speakers as well. So anywhere you are, when you get a message, it's going to look like that, which is kind of nice. You don't get creative writing. You don't get different ways to do it. We just got to learn that way. Okay, so that's what we're doing tonight. So here we go. Ashland Police Department has issued a level 3, go now. Evacuate immediately. And instead of writing out all the zones, and I want to include all of you in case you're like, well, I'm in zone 5 and he only included zone 1. No. For all Ashland evacuation zones. Okay? Ready? Oh, one more thing. So, some nuance to level 3 evacuations. Because fires don't necessarily eat an entire zone depending on where you're at. Like the September 4th fire that we had this last year was actually a good example of that. There were about 12 homes in a large zone that was threatened, and there's probably about 200 others that were not. When an officer shows up at your door, Jackson County Sheriff's, Ashland Police Department, any officer that's wearing a badge, Talent, Phoenix, even Josephine County comes over to our events sometimes. If they knock on your door, if they knock on your car window or however you live, if they say, go now, evacuate, that is a level 3 order without getting a notice on your phone. Does that make sense? So if one of these people tells you, you need to get out, you should believe them without going, well, I don't get anything on my phone, right? There's going to be somebody that didn't come tonight. I'll be like, oh, God. All right, what does it mean to you in your situation? Are you ready? Look, we're laughing going into a level 3. That's actually kind of fun. Name 2 things now. 2 things that you would do upon receiving a level 3 evacuation notice. Share this with someone next to you, and because we're under a time crunch, you only have 1 minute. Ready? Go.
Should we evacuate?
Right. So, and it's a great question, right? We want to know where we're going to go. We don't always know where you're going to be able to go, especially early on. If it's like a sudden event, like a no time to prepare event, we don't always know which way. I can give you a hint though. So in the mornings in summer, our wind blows from the south of the valley to the north towards Medford. Would you agree? Clap if you agree. Okay. In the afternoon, typical wind turns around. Medford heats up and pushes it back towards us. And so then it blows from the north to the south. And the fire is going to follow that. So, depending on the location of the fire, if the fire is blowing towards us from the south, you got only a couple options going north. Same thing. So we can do the math on that. It is not a perfect science. Again, if we could schedule these things and go, okay, we know exactly where the fire is going to go. It's going to be at this time. Everybody knows that they can go here. We can set up a shelter. We're trying to do all that on the fly in a big event. If we have time, we're going to try to set that up ahead of time, and we should be able to tell you a good place to go. When I first took the job as the emergency manager, and I'm thinking about the Almeda fire, and I'm talking with Holly Powers, the former Jackson County emergency manager, who was amazing, really good addition to this county after the Almeda fire. And I said, Holly, if we get a big fire, can't everybody just go to the expo in Central Point? It's big. And Holly was like, that is for animals. And she was serious. And it is. It's for livestock and animals. It's not supposed to be for humans. But what happened in the Almeda? Well, the people went to the expo. So there's been a leadership change. And Delaney Richmond, who is now our Jackson County emergency manager, said almost within her first week, as long as the fire is not approaching the expo, if the county steps up a shelter, they want everybody to go to the expo. So there's an idea. It's not always going to be the right place, okay? I say that, but just know it's not always the right place. But at least they know we're not just animals.
Peace.
All right, any other ideas up here? Let's see. Here's one that was really hard during the Almeda, is that there may not be enough emergency responders to respond to your 911 call. So this is why you are preparing now. And let me just say, there won't be enough, because there's what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Available.
Typically, if we're going to send a level 1 evacuation, and his question was, if you get a level 1, is there going to be more information about where the fire is, what the danger is? Yes. And that's going to be through the message that you get. It'll also be through City of Ashland web pages. It'll be through Jackson County Emergency Management web pages, just things online. I'm trying to think of other sources. Like when we have a level 1, it's time for you to turn on your AM 1700 if you still have, most of you have an AM radio. Does anybody have one anymore? And we record messages on that. We also have a wildfire hotline that we live record to give the best information possible. Are we always going to be foolproof with it? No, it takes humans to do it. It takes time, and it takes that situational awareness to know. But we've got a pretty crackerjack team here. And we have a really good community, too, that stays pretty well informed. Now, hang on. I can't slow us down because I got to keep us to time, and we will have some time at the end. So take a breath, everybody. Take a deep breath. Very Ashland thing. Okay. You just did something hard. You did something that's a little scary, even though you're sitting here. We're training, though. Hopefully it sparked a little dopamine receptor in there or a terror receptor in your amygdala. And if that happened, okay, not bad, but it's going to help you problem solve for when we might have the event. Just as a reminder from the beginning, you can do hard things, even scary things. Remember the story about Raquel? And finally, when we work together and support each other, hard things are less hard. And so as a 3 decades long fire and EMS responder, it pains me to say this. During the Alameda fire, the cops actually saved way more people than firefighters did. But do you know who saved more people than the cops? People did. People helping people, strangers helping strangers, neighbors helping neighbors. That was critical, and I can't emphasize that enough. And you might think you don't have the ability to, but the reason we're doing these workshops is to remind you have agency and you can. So kindness matters. Help everybody out because we need all of you working on this. So it's why we have some more workshops we're going to do, everybody. Oh, that's proof that they survived the hike to the highest place of all. And it's one of those things when Dad's in charge, Mom is usually pretty upset with the big mess we make because that's what bath time always looked like. And but they survived, and we actually had fun along the way. So you hope your bath time like that? No? Okay. All right, so I got a few things before I tell you about our other workshops. So because our valley hosts so many fires and Ashland is kind of this welcoming place, we attract the attention of researchers that are like, wow, you guys host a lot of fires, and your people seem to know like evacuation levels, and that's different. So Boise State University and the Hazard and Climate Resilience Institute, which is something that was started by some of their very brilliant researchers, approached us and said, we're sending out a survey that talks about how people respond in wildfires. It is called Household Response to Wildfire Research Project. Some of you possibly have received this in the mail. Some of you might have received a postcard with a QR code on it that will take you to it. The more surveys that get filled out, if you take the time to actually look at the questions, it should also spark some synapses in your brain to think about solving your own problem on stuff. But I want to direct you to, if we get maybe turn up the house lights real quick there, Michael. Can you turn up all 3? Good. So the sconce, that's the little light fixture where Mike is, and where Mike's pointing, there's the big QR code. If you didn't receive one of those surveys and you want to see what it is, put your camera up to that and do that, it'll open right up. If you just want to type it into your computer, I made single-page, 2-sided things that has the website on it that you can type into your computer and you can take the thing there. The researchers would appreciate your contribution. Your answers are always confidential. You don't have to answer everything. It's completely voluntary. But the research project, which should be published sometime in late 2025, it's going to be shared with the world. And people are going to learn from us about why we're doing what we're doing. It's not just Ashland, it's Talent as well. Talent was like, please send us these things. And we're being not contrasted, but we're also contributing to research that in the same project from Ada County, which is Boise. And it's interesting just the different systems they have and how their people responded. So I'm super excited to see it. If you're interested at all, that little round table right where Mike pointed, pick something up on your way out and give some time to that. It's cute to be a guinea pig. So a few things before we wrap up tonight. This is just workshop 1. Good job. Good on you for showing up here. You gave up a couple hours of your Monday evening, and it's Monday, and it's almost 8 o'clock. Usually pretty tired by then. But we've got some other offerings. On May 4th, we're working with you at an open house for the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. And you'll hear people that speak in government, they all speak in acronyms, right? Well, the CWPP, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what is that? This plan is trying to design our future resilience for like how we're going to survive this age of fire that we're in and how we're going to protect the people and places we love. So take some time out of your day on May the 4th, be with you. Take some time out of your day and show up at the Grove at 1195 East Main. If you have time, go to the city website. You can actually look at the plan and you can say, wow, look at all the good work that's been in here. I wonder if they thought about this. I wonder if they thought about that. And I had this thing. I wonder if there's anything in the plan about that. Take some time to get to know it. These plans are only as valuable as your input goes to them. It can't just be a few people working in a silo. So that's May the 4th. Followed almost a week later, a little more than a week later, on May 14th, we're doing an evening Zoom-only workshop so we can fit way more people into a Zoom room to do home and yard hardening and landscaping and things like that. So a lot of what Brian talked about, but way more in depth. Cherise Sidorak, one of our subject matter experts, and Chris Chambers are going to be hosting that. Chris was going to be here tonight, but he was playing with fire today, and he needs a break. So they're going to be there for May 14th. Again, the time is up there. That's 6 to 8 p.m. via Zoom. And then finally, the big event, on July 16th, we're doing an evacuation evening, kind of another workshop. You just did evacuation light by seeing the messages and then talking about what you're doing. That's going to be more like level 301. So I encourage you to sign up for it. All these workshops are free. I want to give a little gratitude here. Hi. I believe it will, yes. Just like tonight's meeting is being recorded. And because, people should have access to this. And if you didn't make it, you ought to be able to watch it and get something good out of it.
Yeah, where's no.
To the other cloud. It goes on the city servers, and it should be accessible through the city webpage. My communications director, Dorinda Cottle, in the back of the room with the winning smile, is like, yes, that's true. I don't always understand those things, but we're going to make sure it's easy to get to it. Hold your questions real quick. I got to give some gratitude to some people. First, you. Again, like, it's powerful that you're all here. That's why I like this community. So, yes. Whew. I want to say thanks to Sarah and Brian and Sydney and Mike for getting up here. Like, public speaking isn't easy. It's still the number one fear. Great information. I want to say thanks to my boss, Sabrina, the city manager. That's a tough job, but she was like, Kelly, you and Chief Shea, and I'm going to thank him too, need to start working on some of these things. So she's one of the main reasons why we're here tonight, because she wants you all to be ready too. So give her a hand. I want to say thanks to Chief Shea, your fire marshal, the guy that would write a citation to his own mom, because he's supporting this tonight. So, he's a rule follower, and we're glad to have him. Chief Shea, thank you. And then finally, because nobody works in a silo around here, this is Ashland. We all got to work together. Like, there's a team from Ashland News that started this kind of project last year. So if you know anybody from Ashland News, and if you support local news, thank them, because they were like, hey, let's do some evacuation preparedness. That's a great idea. Also, in conjunction with Ashland Together, which is a kind of a nonprofit that just brings people together to do cool things and to listen and learn. So Ashland News, Ashland Together, and finally the Ashland Climate Collaborative, all three of those groups partnered with the city to make this 4-workshop series. We've got a couple, so just to say thanks. And finally, let's thank Oregon Shakespeare Festival for letting us use their facility. And we'll talk to them about the mics later, but thanks. So thank all of you. So here's what we got to do for the rest of the evening. If you need to grab resources from the back table, because I want you to get one of these. There's other stuff back there as well. You can scan QR codes, and I can see Lori Kaplan of Ashland News and Ashland Climate Collaborative wants to say something too, so I'm going to let her do that, and then you can get up and mill about and things. But let's listen to Lori real quick.
I just want to tell you that we're going to be sending you an evaluation afterwards, and we'd love your feedback because we're just trying to do the best job we can with these programs. So look out for that, and we'll also send you the link. So if you registered, then we have your contact, and we'll send you information as it comes out. So now you're part of this family, and thank you so much for coming out.
Thanks, everybody.
Good job.